Hello everyone, it's Friday night and it is time for the Weekender once again. On this week's show we talk the Battle of the Bulge, Batman, and some dungeon delving. Alongside that we also have a prize. Courtesy of Wayland Games, we have a £50 voucher for one commenter on this week's show. To be able a chance to win, you need to be a subscriber to the YouTube channel and pop a comment below this video on YouTube. Now sit back, relax, because your weekend starts here. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekender. I'm joined this week by Ben and John.
Hello. Hello.
I have returned. Whether you wanted me to or not, I'm back.
Yeah, got weirded his way out of the BT offices. Huh?
Yeah.
Just wandering around the streets currently looking for a BT engineer van. Anytime I see OpenReach, I just chase it with a stick. It's the best way. It's the only way.
Were you not off doing your auditions for Bale and Skull? I know it didn't go well, and the other guy got it, but yeah,
NARP.
Yeah.
Bale and Skull show. It better be good, or I will cut him worse. He'll end up worse than when he was the Hound. I'm just saying. Put both sides of his face in the fire.
Oh.
Don't screw me on this.
On Jerry's grudge list is BT Engineers and the Hound.
Yes. only if he screws up Bale and Skull.
Only if he screws up.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm a beneficent god.
Yes.
Yeah. How beneficent am I? Well, I'll tell you how beneficent I am. I unilaterally extended the Terrain Fest.
You did?
So
yeah.
We are into the last 2 weeks of it. So yes, if you've not already got involved, or if you have been and let things lapse and want to get back to them, you can still do that. Get in there and get updated. Yay. Well done, me. And if you're unaware of the Train Fest, it is just 3 months of training goodness.
Yeah.
If you just want to be nosy and see what people have been up to, you can go to the project system at OnTableTop, and then just in the contest part, put in Train Fest 2024 and see what people have been up to. That's really nice.
Yeah,
that's
it is
insanely good.
It is.
Multi-award winning. See the multi-award winning Moonstone one? It's cracking.
Not just Moonstone, also Arcworld and everything else.
Yeah, sure. Slide it on, boy. Click more Moonstone. It's all good. All good and hood. But yes, so if you do want to return to a project that you were working on and maybe let it lapse, you've still got some weeks. However, if you don't worry, because nothing in Trainfest says that your train has to be 100% finished.
No.
We will judge projects on their merits and what we get out of it.
How freaking cool they are.
Yeah. So it matters not a jot to us. Obviously, if it's all bells and whistles done, it looks great. Happy days. But, if there's still a bit of stuff to be finished off, maybe in the Spring Clean Challenge. Who knows?
There's a hefty £300 voucher available for Terrain Fest, which will get you a lot of terrain. So
that will.
For next year's show.
Just buy nothing but wood glue.
Yeah.
Wood glue and MDF. That's the way to do it. So yes.
Your house will smell lovely. So.
Always. Oh, I tell you what, laser cut MDF, we all know how great that smells, right? Yeah. See this laser cut acrylic?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've just been huffing the bag. You'll find out more about that at some point in the future because I'm going to do an unboxing stuff on it. That's just my own personal amusement.
Is the first 5 minits of it just ASMR huffing?
Oh, you have no idea, mate. Absolutely no idea. Doing that and then breaking out the old dichloromethane. Put it all together. I'll be as high as a kite.
Sounds good.
Makes no change.
Breathing in all those microplastics.
Yes. It's all good. It's all good.
For a good time, not a long time.
Yep. Do a line of glitter. Just really get microplastic heavy. My snotter is sparkly. Right.
Started
You
off
missed last week,
as
wasn't
we're
it?
meant to, yeah.
Makes your flu more interesting, doesn't
Oh,
it?
100%. I'm just waiting for a cold.
Oh.
It'd be like a glitter gun going off if I sneeze. It's like Tinkerbell. Right.
Retention.
This is what it's all about. We will get stuck into the most important part of the show. As always, it is our Indie of the Week.
Booyah.
And this week's Indie of the Week is Eagle Figures.
Mm.
And it's not just a load of birds. This is, in fact,
or Roman standard.
A range of 28mm for all the wars from
It's
your
lovely.
ECW through to your 7 Years' War and all points in between, more or less. We'll say this one's solely for the people in GB because they're not shipping to EU or near Nairn anymore because of the GPS.
They unfortunately don't have an agent, I would imagine then. So,
yeah. These things are sent to try us. Imagine the fun that will be had when the British version of the GPSR comes in this year as it's intended to, because this was being worked on for quite some time. But that aside, we'll start off with the ECW, which is relatively compact bijou because, the figures work for both sides.
Yeah.
If you want your little musketeers running around the place, or even better yet, firing with stick firing, best firing. If you've ever seen anybody fire a matchlock, the light comes down, everything stops for about 10 seconds. You've time to pour yourself a cup of tea, and then it fires. So accuracy is really important, hence the sticks, in case anybody's
they're also very heavy. Yeah.
But it's more because, with a modern gun, you point, you fire, and it's practically instantaneous. Whereas you line up, you fire, and then you've got to wait for the black powder to actually ignite.
Yeah. Your opponent has run off left.
Yeah. If anybody's ever seen people dodging out of the way of phasers in Star Trek because they take so long to hit, it's the same sort of thing with a matchlock. You see it coming, you just weave aside. There's also the pikeman ready to receive cavalry. So,
or doing something
else.
Pike
block, or
cam yourself,
or obviously advancing with pike readied. So
you have to supply your own pikes, I imagine,
which will be steel, as is only right and proper. Steel or brass,
proper hedgehog.
Something that will cause you nothing but pain, more pain to you than your opponent in transporting, moving your pikes. I put corks on the ends of all my spears whenever I was doing my Spartans because I kept jabbing the absolute Jesus out myself. So yes, ECW, as you would expect, pike and shot, not a huge range, one of their smaller ones. I thought would start things off with that. Start off slow, work our way up. ACW, something similar. This is a good showcase for how the website's laid out. Whenever you go in, things will be broke down into your artillery, infantry, cav, and ossifers and the like. So if you've ever really hated a hat, you could go with Brigadier General Lewis Armistead. Absolutely. That hat deserved it. Had it coming.
Didn't like it up him.
No, do not indeed. They all knew the risks. Union General with map, where he's attempting to find his asshole with both hands and said map.
What's quite interesting, you're talking about English Civil War and how a lot of it can be fairly interchangeable. It wasn't something until I started doing a bit more reading about it anyway, that even though you do have fairly obvious differences in terms of the uniform and stuff for ACW as well, a lot of the times everything got mixed up regardless. So depending on how you paint things, that could be enough really. but
yeah, and even in that, at the start of the war, there were Union troops in Confederate grey,
right?
Because it was the color the cadets wore in certain places. So the early months of the war was really ad hoc, where you weren't entirely certain what was going where or when and how. So there's Pickett. ready for his charge. That'll go well. So yes, your ACW stuff's particularly nice. All metal, and in the majority of cases, one piece, so you don't have to worry too much as your Confederates charging, getting ready for the old 1-2. Hopefully there's not the Iron Brigade waiting at the top for them. They'll know all about it then.
It's one of those collections that you just buy like a bulk of these, and you have a nice big bag of them arrive in the post.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I always like regiments to be of a type. So, you know, all the regiment marching, all the regiments firing, or whatever happens to be. Because then it's easy to identify who belongs to what, especially when you've got multiple bases kicking around.
Mm-hmm.
But, yes, ACW, very nice. Meat and potatoes of the site is, as you can see, the Napoleonics.
Quite a bit of it, yeah.
Yeah. Some bigger than others. Vistula.
The Vistula?
Yes.
I don't know. What's the Vistula, Jerry?
If I remember correctly, they were Poles fighting for French.
Oh, okay.
Don't hold me to that. I could be entirely wrong.
Let us know down below.
Yeah. But really nice set of French uniformed troops. Your standard Voltigeur, Grenadiers, and Line. So, as you would expect from the Frenchies, they had a more specific way of divvying up the troops as opposed to the British, where the Grenadiers and Light were companies within a regiment, and then they were all pulled out together to form skirmish lines before engagements. So, worked a bit differently. Voltigeur.
I think it was quite nice, the fact that each of them are individual, is that it means that you can go in and you'd be like, right, I want 3 of these guys, 4 of these guys, 5 of these guys, etc. Rather than buying like a bulk bag and then maybe getting some dupes or whatever come out or whatever.
I want 12 kneeling, I want 12 firing.
Yeah.
Do a firing line, and then I'll put a command in the middle. Bish bash bosh.
Or you just mix these in with a lot of the plastic stuff and just use these as command figures and things that stand out a little bit more from the kind of classic stuff that you get in plastic from likes of Victrix or the Perrys or whatever. So the Perrys, but yeah.
As you imagine, we're going to go straight to the peninsula for Ben.
Best war.
Everybody's favorite war.
Best war. Okay.
I mean,
I think you'll find it's got one Richard Sharp involved. No, it doesn't. But
it was certainly one of the more interesting ones if you fancy coming at it from a British perspective. Obviously, there were a lot of coalition wars around Europe that didn't feature the British and featured Austrians and Russians and the likes to a greater or lesser extent. So depending on your point of view, but obviously you're coming at it specifically from a Sharpie and British infantry, in which case the peninsula is the way to go. Waterloo can jog on, as far as I'm concerned. The 100 Days campaign is not particularly...
It's all the stuff that leads up to that, that's more exciting.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, as one massive set piece...
The spectacle of it is wonderful. Yeah. But
as an actual campaign to play through, with multiple engagements, wars, and battles, different types of battles, the peninsula has it all. You know, you've got cavalry, you've got your infantry, you've got small-scale skirmishing, you've got siege, just the diversity. And then obviously within that, there's more limited troops because you've got your British, Spanish, Portuguese, and the regulars.
The fighting in India is equally as exciting, and all the stuff with the sepoys and stuff. Some of the campaigns over there are amazing. Some of the stuff they did and all that kind of things. I'm not just going off sharp books either. I have also read about this.
There's the KGL. So if you fancy a touch of the German, because obviously the royal families of Europe were so interbred, they pop up everywhere.
Yes.
Which became a real problem in World War One.
You think?
oh no, not from the families are fighting, purely from a British military perspective. Some of the regiments were still their senior commander was people they were now fighting against from the Austrian-Hungarian. So the regiments weren't raised immediately in World War I. They had to go, technically you belong to him, but we're fighting it. You just stay there for a moment. We find you a new commander. Yeah. So, yeah, that was weird. But the British infantry are obviously...
They're lovely.
Very distinctive. And for anybody unaware of Napoleonics, they'll probably be aware of it via the medium of Sharpie. So, really nice figs.
Very good for the upcoming Firelock Games Blood and game. So
yes.
That. Yeah. Blood and,
I want to say it's called Blood and Shackles, but
Shackles,
do not hold me to that.
Yeah.
As an ossifer. Because nearly every Napoleonic rule set has Shako in it at some point.
Yeah.
Because it was so distinctive, big stovepipe on them. There's a bugler. Anyway. Drifting away from the British. Obviously, Frenchies are very important. Yeah, we'll stick with the Peninsula. We'll go to the 1809 uniform. So, again, nice set of troops. Very distinctive. A nice depth of detail on them for when it comes to actually painting them up.
Yeah.
Some metals, some plastics as well, to be fair. They tend to merge pack lines and belts and stuff like that, which means you end up having to do additional work to actually differentiate things like strapping. That's the best way to paint French, by the way. Put them into greatcoats.
You don't have to bother about the actual uniforms at that point. Just paint a lovely big greatcoat.
Big greatcoat on them, and then don't worry yourself about claying your the piping on them and doing any of the lace or anything else. Just get stuck in. Big greatcoat, and then black hat and maybe ankles if you could see the ankles. Hopefully you can't. Get everybody to squat as they march forward. Less uniform, please. Less uniform. But yeah, the range they've put together is
incredibly in depth.
Yeah. As you imagine, going for some time. Look at the Grenadiers.
They do some really nice stuff over on Facebook when they preview a lot of these. So they tend to talk a little bit about kind of like why they've gone with X or Y, and why this particular thing's been added into the range, and they talk a little bit about the historical element of it as well, which I think is quite nice. So
yeah. One of the reasons I came across Eagle was because of the silver bayonet and the amount of people looking to find individual hussars and things like that without having to buy packs was right up there. So some units are more prevalent than others, but then the majority of companies tend to sell things in packs, and with silver bayonet where you're only looking individual figures, being able to go into something like this and go, I need line infantry, I need a grenadier, I need an engineer, give me a dragoon on foot and a hussar on foot, and I'm good to go.
That's nearly an entire, crew of characters for, unit, for the silver bayonet for under about 15 quid at that point.
Yeah.
Like that. So,
yes, indeed.
Maybe even less, depending on how much you're spending on your unit.
Good old Swedes. With their awesome hats.
It wouldn't be this period if it didn't include awesome hats.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember where Napoleon sent one of his generals. He must have sent him to... It was either Sweden or Denmark. I think it may have been Denmark.
Right.
But essentially became the new royal family. And he had a tattoo on him.
Yes. Yeah.
That essentially was going, France forever. And now I'm... Well, no, because the current Swedish royal family is still part of Gustav's line, so it must be Denmark. So he became like Danish royalty with a tattoo to his lifelong allegiance to France on him. It was a very crazy time. Swedish horse artillery. Very flamboyant people, the Swedes. Anywho, so yes. Apart from the Napoleonics, there's also the 7 Years' War. So, again, handy if you're planning on doing something like your Silver Bayonet in Canada type of thing, you can swing some of these guys in and do an earlier point of view. Obviously, rocking the nice big tricorns and the like. So your 7 Years' War and your American War of Independence are very
interlinked. I suppose
interlinked.
Yeah,
stems interlinked.
Mm-hmm.
And might even be helpful if you fancy doing something a little bit different. I don't know where you would get them, but if you want to do things like the Fenian Rising, you get 7 Years' War / American War of Independence era British, I suppose, yeah. And they would work for that, but then finding your Irish is going to be tricky. Don't know who does those. There might be something miscellaneous, because obviously they've a very distinctive look, but also used a lot of pike because they didn't have many guns.
Mm-hmm.
How did that work out? Well, I think we know the answer. Gun beats stick. But they're really, really cute. And Grenadiers with their massive mitre hats.
Again, fancy hats.
Yeah. I painted so many 7th colour parties with the big mitred hats on them, and the officers and ensigns with the tricorns.
Right.
I used to paint 54s for a place in Belfast, the Irish Toy Soldier Museum. So I would paint the Enniskillens and the 7th Senior Irish.
Right.
So they are a uniform type. I wonder if I can find. There's an ensign, drummer. These are the ones who have ridiculous amounts of piping. So the entire tunic will be like whatever the facing color is. So let's say for the skins, it was like a buff yellow. So the tunic would be yellow, and then they would have white line running vertically down the front and back, and then chevrons all the way down. So you might be able to see them, you might not. Every one of those is a little chevron line. So those are all white piping, and that's on both sides. And then
sounds like too much work for me.
Then on the front of the tunic, it's the same. And then obviously they have the mitre as well with a ton of fun on it.
Nope.
So yes, if you fancy doing something a little bit intricate and fun, the uniforms, Napoleonic uniforms are nice, but you've really got to go back to your 7 Years' War and that era if you want to really
put all the piping
in there.
I saw above they had army sets. I don't know, like how are they just sort of general ones for all the different
sort of collections? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
that's quite nice then.
So if you want your bits or bobs or whatever, it contains which gives you enough for whatever game you happen to be playing.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's a one-stop shop if you just fancy just going in there and grabbing those, but depends how lazy you are. If you can't be bothered clicking multiple times.
If you don't want to spreadsheet it like in the old days.
I'm saying nothing. I was going to reach over, but they're all the way over there. I've still got.
I have ACW.
I've got my Foundry catalogs,
but I don't have 3.5.
Yeah. You just go through the Foundry catalog and just go, I want that, I want him. I need 17 of him. But anyway,
the back of a stamp.
Yeah. If you fancy getting involved in a bit of black powder, whether it's Silver Bayonet or up to something extraneous like black powder itself, and are looking for some figures for it, it's worth checking out Eagle Figures. There's some really nice bits and pieces in there, including from some of the smaller nations for the Napoleonic Wars as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, let's move on and take a look at some news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, kicking off the news then, we've got some big news from Parabellum and Conquest. Big in that they have announced their 9th army, which they kept very much under wraps.
Yeah,
the little minxes.
Yeah.
So, this army is coming in March.
Yes.
The first previews are now out for the Yunari. They are a interesting faction in so much as they have some unique gameplay mechanics, which we'll get into in a moment. But essentially, they are remnants of the primordial war who've been trapped in essentially hell for a long time. And then some of these demons, abyssals, whatever you want to call them, started seeing a path out of the hellscape they were trapped in. And it turned out to belong to, it was being forged by the prayers of people on a little island. We've not seen the people on the little island yet, but
we've only seen the demons.
Think Japan.
Right, yes, yeah.
There will be, maybe at some point in the future, samurai, human-sized samurai, but they're completely not connected to this. They wanted to keep this faction separate and distinct.
Mm-hmm.
Over centuries, following these prayer paths, these demons have become sort of enlightened and eventually formed, I think they call it the Iron Pagoda, but whatever it is, it's a realm within the abyssal hellscape where they can view the world. They've got there, and as they achieve enlightenment, they can sort of spawn into our world. And the material plane of Ia is to them paradise after living for literally time immemorial in a hell.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
The material plane is great. So some of them are going, we're enlightened now. This is great. And other ones are going, we got here by following a very strict martial militaristic, or not militaristic, a very strict society, the code of like the Bushido type of thing. We need to keep following that. So it's kind of like that warring point in Japanese culture where the emperor was spending so much time looking for enlightenment and doing poetry and stuff that the shogun went, no, we need somebody to actually knuckle down and run this place. So we've ended up with a whole host of figures, and these,
they're very nice.
These are all brute size models, so there are no small infantry. So these are all 8-centimeter style, big, bulky, ogre type things, with, like I say, really unique gameplay, because we've seen armies that have big brutes in them before. Most armies will have something like ogres for the Nords, trolls, or the spires have their actual, spawned, vat spawned things. Yeah. But these are interchangeable. They are not pure units. So when you buy a troll unit for your Nords, you feel them,
it's that thing.
It's that thing.
Yeah.
These, you can go, well, I'm going to take one of him and one of him.
Oh.
And they're called modular units. So anybody who's played Conquest knows that you activate by cards. This is totally different. So it's a really interesting beginner's faction.
Wow.
Because they follow like 4 or 5 principles, like Ka, Chi, Su. And whenever you're forming your deck, your characters and units will put so many cards in. So like a Ka card, if you have a Ka character. So instead of having to be very specific in how you stack your deck for your activation, which for new players, that can be quite tricky because you go, oh, I really needed to activate that unit or character earlier, and now they're dead, and then that means that the next 3 cards I had lined up to do something based off what that character was going to do, and all my game plans crumbled and my army's dead. Instead, if you draw a Ka card, you can go, okay, who's on the table who activates as a Ka? That. I can pick any of those, or I can pick any of the Chis. But when they activate, they also get a little bonus for activating as a Ka or as a Chi, which might be a defensive bonus or an attacking bonus, that sort of thing. Now, you can still do pure units. So, for example, if you look at the Tengu here, and there's 2 types, because it's a dual kit, so you've got the Stabby and the bow version. Mm-hmm. If you feel them as purely Tengu, then they gain the fly ability. If you mix and match them, you go, okay, well, that they bestow all of their abilities to the unit as a whole. So you put in like one model that has defense and evasion, and a model that has +1 attack. Then when they come to do their attacks, each model activate or attacks individually within the unit, but they add up the bonuses that the unit has got for the combined mix as their sort of
Wow.
their essence come together.
It's sort of a make your own synergy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of what
it's
I'm
going to be
getting.
fascinating. It's all up on the companion app now, so people can have a look at it.
I love this though.
These are going to be fascinating, and these aren't the only fascinating thing. There's something else that's been mentioned, but we haven't seen them yet. So the Dorama Dashimi are like haunted armor. The
negative space.
all of the Yoroni, may or may not be how the faction's pronounced, where there's a confluence of elements, that's where they pop through into our reality. So a volcano with fire, earth, and air. Boop. A waterfall, water, earth, and air. Boop. So these things, after many centuries, have finally started to break through the material plane, but they're not geographically located like other factions. They're just sort of coming through all across at different places. And you've got the elemental theme running through the different builds within the faction themselves. So these guys are cracking looking. For some of the ones that aren't quite powerful enough to manifest themselves, there's a unit called the Origami Warriors that are like a reel of paper that have the names of all the different Oni inscribed on it, who are all putting their own force in to animate this. So I can't wait to see what they're doing with this, because the entire faction is hard plastic. There's no resin. So even the characters are all plastic. There will be, we'll look at it in a minute, there will be some resins that are optional,
specials and stuff
specials,
like that,
or the likes of the Founder series and the Artisan series. But they are supplemental. They're one of those, if you really like painting or you really like the cut of the model and you want to go nuts, then you can. So things like the Kitsune in the middle there, that's a dual kit. It makes either a caster or a fighter. Also, these little cheerful chappies here are tied to the water element. Apparently, their head's like a little divotty bowl that contains water, and the holy water, if it ever spills out, they die. So when they go to battle, they have little hats to keep the water in. So
that's awesome.
There'll be a lot more coming over the next 2 months. So as we move into February and then March to the release, you'll see a lot more of the miniatures and more of the background and stories and lores coming as well. And there's also going to be a little starter set. So the new starter set will contain the Wadrun along with the Yoroni. So if you fancy giving this a go, this is also going to be tied to a campaign that's coming in the summer in June, which is going to be centrally focused on the Wadrun and the Yoroni.
Sounds good.
So if you fancy getting a head start, you can do it via the medium of this. It includes that massive Quetzal as well.
Dinosaurs versus demons.
Yes. It's what we've all been waiting for, to be fair. Find a little bit of fluff is the preview model. Yeah. So this is the faction preview model. It is resin. It is available for 2 months. If you do not get it by the end of March, I think, like it's February, March, it's going to be available so pre-orders will be going up sometime in January, but then that'll be it. There may be other founders or something similar in the future, but this is a Kitsune that you can use as either or. So it's either a painter's dream piece or still be a gameable piece if you fancy it. But I think it's really fascinating that they've gone with this. I mean, there's so many intricacies in the game design that they've decided to go, we don't want to do another faction where they play the same as every other faction. How do we make this different? And not just go, it's a big force, it's a big brute force. There's some monsters coming, which are fascinating. The Rakshasa comes from the same plane of hell. So the Sorcerer Kings have been delving through here for a while, going, we'll have that, we'll have this. Whereas the Yoroni have snuck out themselves, finding their own path to enlightenment instead. But expect to see things like the big Rakshasa that the Sorcerer Kings have, something of that ilk as the monster.
That'd be nice.
It's a jewel kit. I can't remember the name of it, so you're going to have to forgive me for that. But they've got like 2 different variants, and one is, so every time you play an activation card, so a key or Ka or Chi or a Su or whatever. So every turn you can play one. You can play the same card on it every time, but it gets a buff, and the buff is permanent as it sort of sucks in all the elemental force. So if you play different cards, different turns, they're cumulative and they're permanent.
Cool.
So by turn 4, it has everything unlocked and does all the punching, bells and whistles and madness as it destroys things.
It is fully Voltroned itself.
It is 100% out there. So yeah, really looking forward to see where else they go with this faction. There's obviously the sub factions within it as well.
I was going to say,
from a lore point of view,
you tempted, John? I know you're quite a fan of Oni and Japanese stuff.
I think for me, Conquest, to get me into Conquest, I need something low model count, and I think that's important to me because like everything else is kind of large army. Kind of what we've done in the studio previously has been like large army. It's very easy to burn out on. So
well, your minimum unit size for the modular regiments is 2 stands.
So
okay, yeah,
Yeah. 2 models.
They're going to be wild in First Blood as well. I'm fascinated to see how they work in that. I mean, I know Shay will probably.
It would take me another 15, 20 minutes to talk about First Blood. If you want to know how they play in First Blood, though, they did discuss them in the happy hour,
right?
Which I think we've got linked there. And if
not,
it's
in the news story, so you can check it out.
You can go into the news story and go and have a look at that. The bit about First Blood came about 2/3 of the way through. Evan was talking about it. So yes, if you want to know about First Blood's their skirmish game, obviously you're already low model count-ish for Conquest, Path of Kings. No, Last Argument of Kings.
Last Argument.
Too many games in my head. But if
too many kings.
So if you want to drop down into smaller scale, then yes, it plays similar but different, and they lean into the characters and how they generate their various sort of attributes. Anyway,
nice.
So, yes. Moving swiftly on, not swiftly enough for many.
So the awesome Blood on the Sands gladiator style board game / miniatures game that we talked about, I think towards the sort of like tail end of last year, has got a Kickstarter date of the 11th of February now. So the team behind the game, which you can actually go and check out a project all about this over on Tabletop anyway and find out a little bit more about the development of the game and how it plays and stuff. But they're going to be coming to Kickstarter next month. It is a gladiatorial skirmish game where you'll take on the role of someone running a school of gladiators. And as you might imagine, that means you'll be sort of training them up and getting them ready to fight in the arena, kick ass and take names and do all that kind of lovely bloody stuff. And this will then flow into a larger campaign-style game. You can also, of course, just play it as one-on-one bouts if you see fit to do so as well. But they've really gone in depth on sort of really pushing the kind of intricacy of those kind of like one-on-one combats and how they sort of work, and then how they develop with slightly more characters on the sand and everything as well as you go forward. But it seems like a really interesting way of building up a ancient campaign game that isn't in the same style as some of like larger army style ones as well on the tabletop. The other thing you'll be seeing here as well is that they've actually announced that they've partnered up with Wargames Atlantic, who are going to be doing the plastic miniatures for the gladiators. So if you liked what they've done in the past for the likes of Gangs and Rome, stuff like that, then these will be an absolutely amazing addition to that collection. As you can see, they've really gone in and sort of built on all the different weapons and armor types and things that you would have found during the period. And then by extension, that means that you'll be able to sort of use all these different weapons in the ways of kitting out your gladiators as you build up your school and send them to their deaths on the sands.
Well, you say deaths. Death matches were fairly rare.
Well, true,
rare.
But it takes a lot to hold someone back when they've got a sword.
but then
and the other guy's got a net.
That's why your matchups are very important.
True. Yes. You pick the right matchups and make sure that your gladiators come through to the end of it. So yeah, but
I am absolutely.
It looks super cool.
On board with this in so many ways. One, I really like, because I've been looking at the Blood in the Sands project on and off on things like the Hobby Hangout for a year or more, and I really like it. It's a hex based
Yes.
game, and it has gladiatorial cards. Did they show them on the big pic?
I think there's some of the cards.
Oh, yeah, here. So these are the back. So when you're playing, you've got sort of action dice and D6 as well. But then you've also got sort of wind tracking in a battle tech style. So, you may not need to kill your opponent, but if they can't attack anymore, just as good. You win that way. So I like that tracking system because it goes into...
If he has no legs, he cannot charge.
Yeah, it goes into the granularity of proper skirmish. Where you're actually having to track individuals, which means you can play a grand melee of, I think, up to 6 players, or you can play teams, or you can play 1v1. You can do different things with it. So I'm loving that.
It seems like a really good game to play with, like a group at a club or something. So you set up, or like a store or whatever, wherever you go effectively to play your games. If you all got involved with this, because you only have to build a certain amount of models for this, quite a low model count anyway. Oh yeah, you could set up some really fun bouts over the course of a couple of months or something, and see who comes out at the other end as the best trainer, or the most cutthroat, maybe.
Discover why certain gladiatorial matchups were not done. That type of thing. Going, oh, he's made a mess of him, because it was kind of like boxing, your flyweight, heavyweight type of thing. Never the twin shall mix. So that's one thing that I'm absolutely loving. The second thing is the plastics, because the minute Gangs of Frome plastics came out, even before then, anytime Hudson was going, what should we do next? And he's going, I'd really like to see gladiators, plastic gladiators, multi-part gladiators, Hudson. I want to do those for one very specific reason. I really want to do the third Servile War. I want to do Spartacus.
Yes.
And it's not impossible to do, but it's expensive to do in metal. And actually being able to go, I can get the Gangs of Frome box and get some gladiator boxes and start mixing and matching and put together your Spartacus revolt.
Your rebellion,
and fire them up against some Roman legions and kick their toys in for a while. Would just be so good. So...
I heard a fascinating comment, just as a random aside.
Yes.
All the Wargames Atlantic stuff comes on those puddle bases. I read a comment
not
somewhere.
All of it.
Well,
specifically historicals, because that's what we like in historicals.
But someone wrote a comment. It was like, do you hate hobbyists? Why do you keep putting things on puddle bases? I just have to go and cut them off and ruin the feat. And someone said, well, you do realize that the contact points on these models would be minuscule, so gluing them to bases would be basically impossible, or you'd have to sit there holding it. And someone was like, well, this has completely ruined my view. I will not back this campaign, or something like that. And I was like, wow, that is that is some hatred towards puddles.
That's hilarious.
There we go.
I'm just going to go out there and say that person is not only wrong, but terribly wrong.
I like them. So there we go.
I'm an old man. The idea of not having puddles on bases is a GWism, so that they could then it was easier to cast with slots, but then you also had to be able to produce plastic slotted bases for those. And anybody who's put anybody's put a big army together using nothing but slotted bases will know they're a big pain in the backside to get them to glue sometimes, which requires you to bend those tabs so that they actually have more contact point in the slot as well. And no, puddle bases are just great. So much better.
And then they can also sell you their heroic base.
Oh, well, that's true, yeah.
They can sell you tactical rocks.
Puddles for life. They don't do them on sci-fi and fantasy.
Well, yeah.
Oh, no, they do them on fantasy, I think.
They have that's because they're all wearing those big boots and stuff, aren't they? They have that on the Frostgrave stuff, but... Yeah.
Anywho. So yes, we digress.
Just a random thing that I just come up in the world this week.
That's fine.
There we go.
You name and shame them.
Gladiators, check it out. It's going to be awesome.
Blood in the Sand. Who knows? We may even get a chance to see it on the channel.
Gladiators.
Oh, can we get a tiny bald Scottish man with a whistle in when we do it?
On my first whistle.
Awesome. Right, John, save us.
So sticking with the historical stuff, Warlord Games is bringing out a new compendium for bolt action, obviously brought up to version 3. This is a amalgamation of various articles that have been put on the website, on the Warlord Games website, as well as some they say that they haven't actually put out before. And it's really it's a book for inspiration is my main sort of takeaway from it.
Mhm.
So it has a lot of special scenarios, unit types, stuff that you're not really going to get in your main armies of books. So these smaller battles and lesser known engagements and that sort of stuff, and the units that were involved with those. So we're getting rules and scenarios to do with that. To me, as I said, inspirational, I think, is just to just to pick something out and go, yes, I want to do that force, or I'm going to do these two forces or whatever, and do this battle. And it gives you everything you need to do that, all obviously brought up to 3rd edition.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting one. It's, as they say, it's something you definitely need on your shelf. And I agree, if you're a bolt action person, it's something you're going to have on your shelf. I don't think there's a really much of a question there. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I've seen a lot of titles and stuff in there that I'm just not used to. I've just not seen some of this, so it's probably going to be a bit of an education for myself as well.
That's cool, though.
With some of the battles and some of the lesser known stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's, see, if you're like me and you've grown up with the History Channel and stuff like that, you always hear about the big stuff.
Yeah.
You always hear about the big battles, and then kind of the Pacific is kind of mentioned. It's always Iwo Jima or Burma as a big sort of, oh, the British were here. It's like Burma happened anyway. Iwo Jima. So, along with this book, we have the special miniature as well, the Russell Sprung.
Yes, the Operation Rosselsprung figure.
Someone is going to tell me I've said that terribly.
Russell Sprout.
Russell Sprout, member of the 500th SS Parachute Battalion. So an SS guy with a Fallschirmjäger top on and an STG. Lovely looking model, though. One of my favorites they've brought out for a book specific release.
Looking rather scared of the probably the partisan forces coming to kick his head in, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But
Well, speaking of, I mean, and obviously some of these are stuff that Warlord have done themselves, and others are ones that the community did and put up.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before with other games where, like Cross of Iron, the community would go in and would do small scale, or not small scale, but would do unusual scenarios based on actions that people don't really talk about.
Yeah.
And that one there, the Voucher uprising, that was post D-Day.
Right.
When the region, which is like a little mountainous region, that had been sort of doing a lot of partisan fighting anyway, decided they would rise up against the German occupiers, and about 4,000 sort of partisans kicked off, declaring that area as a free republic, and the Allies were going to support with advisors and parachutists, but they sort of uprised too early. 10,000 German soldiers came charging in, so it was very short. But yeah, so that, I mean, that's one of those sort of things where you will see not much about it, but as a one-off game post D-Day, everybody looks at Carentan and looks at the breakout and all these staples of the main fighting. But then that one that happened at the same time, just sort of mid to southern France, very different type of game, different forces in there, because you've got a partisan heavy force. Really fascinating little one shot. And the fact that the book has got like loads of these little things that you can go off and they give you the historical background for it is great as well. So you can go, well, let's play something a bit different, or this looks really fascinating. I'd really like to play that particular scenario. What do we need for it? And then you could build up towards it. So if you needed to get partisans, whatever happens, because you may not have them in your collection, you could.
They did a book similar to this for Blood Red Skies, and it was like really, really well received. People really enjoyed it, so it's good to see them doing it again for the 3rd edition, obviously, of Bolt Action. So
the thing it reinforces for me is the ownership of the game by the players.
Yep.
The fact that they're not just waiting on Warlord to produce an official tournament list for something, because obviously they do the campaign books, which are great when they come out, but they're slow in releasing those, and the majority of players tend to focus on, we're bringing 1,100 points each, no more than 14 dice of activation, blah blah blah, tournament rules, and you just do the same slogging punch fest all the time, which they've tried to get away from with things like deployment and objectives in 3rd edition. But this type of book, cracking, because it pushes it away into that sort of narrative, more historically accurate side. Not every fight was equal numbers. When 2 armies arrived and one was outnumbered by the other, the outnumbering force didn't go, right lads, sit down, we need to make this fair.
I mean, history tells us time and time again, like something like a Kampfgruppe was holding up an entire division, if it had its act together. And then at the same point, you have the 101st at Bastogne, held up an entire Panzer Corps. So, no battle is equal. And even then, the lesser of the two can hold its own. So, I always like that about World War II stuff, from what I know of, like the larger battle kind of stuff. Like, you still find a lot of these small units are able to take on way bigger forces or way better equipped stuff. So,
well, speaking of, you may be interested in the announcement then from Renegade, like the Renegade Masters. There are pre-orders up
back again
for Axis and Allies games.
I cannot escape Battle of the Bulge this year, apparently.
You really can't. It's almost like they had an anniversary or something. So first up is the Battle of the Bulge. So this is actually a reprint. It's been out of print now for coming on almost 20 years. So if you're interested in playing a different type of Axis and Allies game,
a slice of Axis and Allies rather than the whole shebang.
The Battle of the Bulge, as its name suggests, recreates that Wacht am Rhein, the German offensive through the Ardennes.
Ardennes Boogaloo version 2.
Yep. It is a 2-player game, unlike some of the other games we're going to look at in a moment. But it's all about pushing through and attempting to disrupt the Allied supply lines with the goal of actually getting to the coast and seizing one of the ports. So, as you can see, the map is massively skewed, with the Allied front line almost encroaching on one side, and that front line will move at the end of every turn, depending on how well the Germans are doing. Their goal is to get up the board and capture 24 points worth of significant villages and towns, and the Allies just have to stop them.
Just have to stop.
Just have to stop them. It's an 8-turn game, so it's relatively tight time wise, because obviously some Axis and Allied games can go on for a whole day, like depending on who's playing. And things like the narrative of the game, the historical accuracy is mirrored in some of the mechanics as well. So you get things like your air can't come in until turn 4 later, when the skies clear up from the cloud and flurries of snow. So you can either prep in advance for that or just work on the principle it's going to be coming your way. But this was obviously part and parcel of trying to use the cover to ignore the Allied air superiority when the Germans push in. So cracking little game, obviously a lot of fun.
Only 3 to 4 hours to play, but an afternoon well spent.
An afternoon. Depending on who's playing what, it could be much faster than that.
Well,
if you do things very badly wrong. Or if you have my dice rolls, opposed dice rolls requiring 6s is never good.
That's one thing they said about the Battle of the Bulge. The dice rolls have gone differently.
Yep. So. Yes. A new pre-order, though, is Stalingrad. And this one is fascinating for a couple of reasons.
Shay's ears have pricked up.
Oh, 100%.
Somewhere they have, yeah.
100%. So, again, another very specific area within World War II. So, it has 2 boards in it. One for Stalingrad itself, the various areas within it, and then one of the wider area within Russia, with obviously you can see Stalingrad being this little part locked right in the corner. So that's the bigger map. But then it means there's the 2 scenarios. So you've got your race to Stalingrad and Operation Uranus, where the Soviets attempted to cut off and encircle the German army. This plays more like the traditional Axis and Allies than the movable.
Yeah, especially with the bigger campaign map style setup and things. Yeah.
It includes a few new units like the Katyushka, Uncle Joe's organ, and the Stug is in there as well for the assault gun for the Germans. I am interested in how much the 2 boards interconnect. Are they separate and distinct for your scenarios, or are they filter boards? Are you going to filter from the larger map board into Stalingrad and then be able to play there? And if not,
how interconnected can you make it, kind of thing? Or are they still very much standalone type of affairs? It talks about it there, but
yeah. Because the way I'm looking at it is, I know it obviously it can play for longer than the Bulge, not quite the full on Axis and Allies, but the me within me just wants to go, you're playing on the big map, but you're also playing on the smaller map. So every round is 2 boards. Can you
that would be
pull support in from the bigger map into Stalingrad? Or do you just have to go, if I pull support in, I'm not going to be strong enough to encircle the Germans? Because if that game doesn't exist within this game, I will make that game.
Yeah. Well, we'd seen the rulebook for Battle of the Bulge, because obviously you said it'd been out.
It's been out, yeah. It's an old game.
Stalingrad's not out until I think the latter half of this year.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll see the rulebook for that soon, and we'll be able to get a little bit of an idea of kind of how that works. But I really like that they've done, as well as reprinting the larger Axis and Allies games, so you can dive in and start playing those again without having to hunt for them on eBay and all that kind of stuff. Actually doing these smaller offensives, I think, is a really cool idea, especially for people who want to get an idea of Axis and Allies, but not necessarily do the whole weekend-long campaign style thing.
So those are historical ones, and then obviously nailed on for John. There's also a couple of others. So
absolutely, this is absolutely what I'd be doing. Yeah.
The Battle for the Arctic Circle. We've all been there. There's the Baroness. Why would anybody fight against the Baroness? Anyway, so you're going to be able to get Cobra up against G.I. Joe as they play across, using sort of a stripped down version of the Axis and Allies rules. It also uses the hex map, which is similar to Bulge. So you don't have the unusual geographical shapes of areas that you're moving into, which means it's easier for younger players to get sort of an idea of a bigger game, because it's more predictable, and you know if somebody's 3 hexes away, they're 3 hexes away. You don't have to go, I need to hold this tiny weird landlocked country because it's got 6 ports coming off or whatever,
I don't know how many modern 14-year-olds know G.I. Joe, but
well, they know it as those 2 amazingly terrible films.
Yeah, I suppose, but
3 if you include.
If you're 14 years old
Eyes
at heart, then this is the game for you. Probably.
I think the 14 plus thing really should be 30 plus.
Yeah,
it should be 30. Not suitable for anyone that doesn't know what the heck this is.
Yeah,
this is suitable for everyone. Yeah. This is how it goes. Parents will then expose their kids to the cartoons and the comics, and then from there they can get them into Axis and Allies via this game, and from this game they can upgrade them into full-on Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
It's
and they'll learn amazing life lessons along the way as well.
Yeah,
from G.I. Joe.
Oh, 100%. The more you know. Thanks,
knowing is half the battle.
And the most we know is that Snake Eyes film was absolute garbage. So yes, we've got the G.I. Joe on the way for the Battle for the Arctic Circle, and then there's also the Battle for the Deep. If you fancy something particularly bizarre, surreal, and fishy in nature, not connected with any IP.
No,
It's just full-on weirdness. I will say there does appear to be Haster and a Shoggoth there, because one of the factions is the Deep Dwellers. Oh,
it is.
Died in your arse. Why have you died? Yeah, better. Because one of the factions are the Denizens of the Deep.
Yeah.
We've also got the Protectors, the Undersea Kingdoms, and the Leviathans. And the Undersea Kingdoms, I'm never going to be able to get that song out of my head. There's a whole lot of commotion under the ocean, under the sea. And as you can see, this is a very abstracted version of Axis and Allies again, laying into the simpler rule set. And if you like crabs, and I like crabs, then
you can never shift them.
Yep, you can go whole hog in here.
Yeah.
Almost Cthulhu.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Cthulhu. There's a lot of Cthulhu meets Disney meets all sorts.
Under the sea.
Under the sea. So yeah, the Battle for the Deep, Axis and Allies. This is a peculiar one, and I quite like it for a couple of reasons. One, because it's not tied to anything. You don't have to try and explain why the GI Joes are there and why you shouldn't attack the Baroness. And also, it's so incredibly colourful, and this may seem insane, but for getting kids in, being able to go, here's your really chintzy, over the top, colour in your face, abstracted game, it attracts small children.
Yeah.
You know, the camo and all the rest in Axis and Allies is great. It's very dull. Fields of green and beige coming at you. But for kids, they like to be kept, interested in what's going on.
Very true.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this
also
one goes.
Team game, which I quite like the idea, the twist on. So it's 2v2 rather than everyone for themselves.
Yeah,
because not one of the undersea empires can control the deep by themselves, so they must ally with Cthulhu in order to win. Nothing
wrong with Haster, the King in Yellow.
Yeah.
It's a
he's totally fine.
He is 100%. They're all fine. We're all fine here. Never read aloud from the book. So yeah, a whole host of stuff coming in the not too distant future from Renegade, courtesy of Hasbro and Avalon Hill. So yeah, cracking stuff. Right. Talking about delving into the sea, there's also a bit of dungeon delving going on. A couple of announcements from Mantic for Dungeon Saga Origins. Ooh. And these are the newest expansions in the ongoing campaign for slapping everybody who's evil upside the head. So Daughters of Doom.
That's the official subtitle.
That is 100% the official subtitle. Daughters of Doom is coming, which will introduce the Abyssal Dwarves to the heroes as they continue to try and fill their pockets with everything they can find in abandoned places and not so abandoned places. So the Daughters of Doom includes new game tiles along with the various figures you will need to interpose yourself with some Abyssal Dwarves, Ironcasters, and Immortals go, including some of their weird and wacky stuff like the Runecaster's little sort of lava crab. It's a spellcaster's rune carrying thing, like an animated construct that helps them out. It has obviously Amazad Doomfire is the big boss that people will be working their way towards, and there's a set of, I think it's 10 linked scenarios for this one. But it includes all the the additional tokens, cards, bits and pieces you'll need, including treasure, to add into the ongoing Dungeon Saga Saga Squared, Sagaception, if that is the way you fancy going.
Saga Cubed.
Yeah. And it's a really nice set of figures. I know this before I have this. So if you're fancying getting up close and personal with some Abyssal Dwarves, then the Daughters of Doom is a great way of doing it. And for people who want to skip the stunted ones, because maybe they don't like having their kneecaps hacked off and want to fight something a bit bigger, then Mirrors of Malice is also available to pre-order. And this adds the Twiglet King and their evil Night Stalker allies. So likewise, the Mirrors of Malice also contains new game boards along with all of the figures, including the Terrible Crones and the big boss of all, Yzarel Duskweaver. And these are some tasty models. You never want a tormentor to get anywhere near you, and you definitely want to keep the big boys well away from you. It's nice to see these finally coming. These were the first view of the new Twilight Kin.
The Twilight Kin, yeah.
Before the actual army was released for Kings of War. For people who haven't seen Dungeon Saga, these are standalone expansions. So even though there is a ongoing story that starts with the Tyrant, you don't have to play them in order. So you can go from core set to any of the expansions. But if you want a progressive story, you can go via Glimmer of Grey, Daughters of Doom, and Mirrors of Malice, which will give you the 4 sort of separate campaign storylines. Cracking wee game. You can play it solo and cooperatively as well, because there is
an app for that.
Well, you know how much I hate apps.
We are aware.
So there is an app, the Overlord app, which does 2 things. When you're playing solo and co-op, there's actually a deck of cards with it's an AI deck in the game.
Okay.
That's how you play. Yeah. If you want to use the Overlord app, but want to get all the bells and whistles in there, then the Overlord will track sort of experience, upgrades, that sort of thing on your characters. And also it brings up a screen that you can play, so it reveals the rooms as you go, so you don't need to see what's happening.
Don't play it all out ahead of time and stuff like that.
Yeah, my main problem with apps being sort of full on in games is that you end up where you're just playing a computer game. You're not playing a board game with your friends. You're playing against a computer.
Yeah.
So the app itself is relatively light. In fact, if I do this is probably the easiest way to show you, rather than doing any other nonsense. So if we go to...
My God, my beautiful face.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That's a campaign that's exciting and different. So if you want to play with the app, then it tells you to set up your 2 tiles like this.
That's nice. Yeah.
There is the introductory and closing paragraphs are read out, so they're voice acting. If you don't want to use this, you can just click into the thing and have those sitting there and just play it one at the start and one at the end. But then whenever you go, it tells you if you're just playing this as a one-off rather than the campaign game, you get these additional things. And then if you hit start the adventure, there's your 2 boards. Your heroes are on either side. And if you search that area, it will tell you if you found something. So normally the book will go, there's something specific in the area. And if there's not, then you just draw a card. This throws it up in your face that it's just an exploration card. So you draw that.
Nifty.
If I open that door, it then tells me this needs to go down, that goes down.
This is a very slick app.
I know some people want to do more. I think there's other games that have apps where you're moving everything and tracking everything, but at that point it is more computer game than...
Yeah, I think as long as it shows you starting positions for things and stuff like that, you need to go
that's all you need.
Yeah.
Dungeon exploration card. Never want those. They always turn out to be poison traps, and then I get shot.
Yeah. I will say, one of the things that's big, the effort that Mantic Games put into Dungeon Saga Origins when it came back, because it came back through Kickstarter, didn't it, initially?
Yeah.
Because they revamped and tweaked the rules to kind of make it a little bit more approachable and that kind of thing. And one of the big selling points was they wanted to make it very good for like families to play the game as well. Hence the whole idea of there being, you can have the Overlord, but you can just also play it with the sort of
one against many element. Yeah.
I love that idea. And the other thing is they've put so much effort into the game and these successive chapters. It boggles my mind that anyone, I mean, obviously people can enjoy what they like, but it boggles my mind that people still want to play HeroQuest when HeroQuest is still based on those classic older mechanics, like rolling for move and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you dive into something like Dungeon Saga, you're genuinely getting a modern, updated version of that. I mean, if you look at the box design, they've clearly taken inspiration and ideas from old D&D red boxes and HeroQuest and all that kind of thing in the way that they've portrayed the game. They're not hiding that. And also, it's really cheap comparatively when you look at it, some of the prices for some of the box sets.
The core
I think
game's
it's 40
like
quid
50.
for an expansion, 60, 70 quid for the core box.
Oh, you
get a heck of a lot in
find
there.
it for about 50 quid. For online
probably.
sellers always do like 10% or 20% off things.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people look at Mantic games and they immediately go to Warpath and Kings of War and think of they're the things that they do. But in actuality, a lot of their smaller games, like Dead Zone and these board games and stuff like they've done in the past for Hellboy and Worms, they're phenomenally well produced. I mean, I know like I'm sound like I'm kissing their ass now. This is Jerry's job, but
they just take money directly from me every month.
But yeah, but don't sleep on the Mantic games board gamey stuff. It's genuinely really, really good. And I think honestly, if you're somebody who likes HeroQuest and you want to try something a little bit different, maybe go and check out Dungeon Saga. Because I was looking through this and I was like, man, I want to play freaking Dungeon Saga Origins now.
Next time you're over, I've been painting my stuff.
There we go.
We'll get it on camera.
Yeah.
What I will say on the subject of dungeon crawling board game, they use those tiles, and obviously the one I showed you there, they're side by side, but the core set has 3 tiles, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they're made so they tessellate in multiple ways. So it's a really good halfway house between HeroQuest, which is a flat board that never changes, and something like Descent, where you're laying out corridor after corridor, and so it's really intricate and involved. These, you just go, that board goes there, this board goes there, this board shifts there, and because of the way the boards are all set, and they can be set against each other to make corridors all over the place.
Well, it's like the Hellboy setup almost.
Yeah, setup is incredibly. What's better? It's not better than Hell. Hellboy's more corridors and rooms. You still have tile. This only it's like 3 tiles, 2 tiles. And then you're either sliding them against each other or butting them up in different ways. And the modularity of the design is ridiculously good. So your setup's incredibly quick. And that, I think, is one of the big things with any board game. If you're having to spend 20, 25 minutes setting up all the pieces and getting all the, here's this, this, and this going into these places,
the
kids have got bored and wandered off.
Yeah.
Throw 3 tiles down or 2 tiles and then just start playing. But anyway. Right. Enough Dungeon Saga.
Just before we dive into some more of the news, obviously a reminder that we have a £50 voucher that is available as a competition prize for this week on the Weekender, as given to us by the lovely folks at Wayland Games. And considering we have been talking about some bolt action stuff this week in the show, I thought it might be a good idea to show off kind of stuff that they've got set up. So obviously, as we talked about last week, John immediately went to the Gunpla section and just went there, and that was it. We spent quite a lot of time in the Gunpla section. But obviously, loads of different pre-orders available from the folks at Wayland Games that you could use your £50 voucher on, get your hands on some lovely bits and pieces. Some of the stuff that is coming out quite soon is the Armies of Germany book, so if you've not already pre-ordered it through the likes of Warlord, for example, some of your £50 voucher could go towards getting your hands on that pre-order bundle. Get your hands on that with the lovely miniature, which is very nice. And, of course, that leaves you £30 left over to buy some more awesome plastic miniatures. Lovely jobbly. Get yourself an Army of Germany built up as you read the book. It'll be very nice indeed. So lots of different bits and pieces for you to get stuck into and get pre-ordering and stuff. And obviously, as we looked at the last week in the show, there's plenty more over on Wayland Games as well for you to sink your teeth into, including, as Justin kept going on about, video games. There's video games on here. I can find video games. Yeah, video games are fine, but plastic toys are better. So there you go. Yeah.
Anybody who spends that voucher on video games, I will cut them.
You have been warned. You have been warned.
Good to know.
Yep.
But yeah, make sure to comment down below on anything that you've seen during the show, and you could be a chance with winning that £50 voucher.
If you want to know if you've been a previous winner, go to OnTableTop.com. Up at the top, go to the More section, and under More you will find the claim a prize bit, and you can click it there, and it lists. It will list you.
It will.
And if it's not you, you won't get it.
That's the way it works.
100%.
And because I'm a kind presenter, I'll put a link to the Price Claim Center in the description, whereas Jerry will make you go search for it. So there we go.
It's really simple. 2 clicks, more, claim a prize.
Yeah. But yes, sticking with the idea of dungeon delving,
Yes.
some more fun stuff is coming out from the folks at Corvus Belli for Warcrow Adventures. So they're not sitting on their laurels either. They've got some really fun stuff coming up for that. Possibly the coolest expansion for the game yet, I think.
Yes.
So this is Death Claws of the Dream, which is the first big box expansion for Warcrow Adventures, which obviously had its debut on Kickstarter a couple of years ago now. It was a couple of years ago. Yeah, it was. Jesus, yeah. Because last year was Warcrow, the Wargame.
It was the Wargame.
That was
Warcrow Adventures. Was over to look at that
yes,
years
exactly.
ago.
So if you're looking to expand beyond Hawthorne Point and see where the story takes you next, this is the box for you to dive into and pick up. It comes with 2 new characters. So you've got Iriavik and Trebor, and they are 2 new characters that come with the new mechanics based around the pet class in the game.
Tell me this one is Trebor.
That is Trebor, yeah.
Do you remember the advert?
I don't. I mean, I know the mint, obviously.
Trebor mints are a minty bit stronger. And there's the hole in the middle of his Trebor mint.
Yeah. It's as if they did it on purpose and knew our
myself a round of
idioms. Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, so either of them get to call on pet classes in the game. So Iriavik comes with Cole, her hunting wolf, and Trebor has not a mint, but a trinket that he calls, so little contraptions that he's built that he can use to kick ass and take names. They can obviously be added into the mix alongside the existing heroes from the core box, and you can start to take them off on some new adventures. But the real meat and potatoes of this new box set are the enemies. So friend, foe, something in between. We have the amazing new elf miniature, which is Nuada there. Who, if anyone who's seen the Golden Army Hellboy movie,
shallow, pale things.
Absolutely fantastic new character miniature. One of the things I really like about this box set, normally they kind of like, when you see things for dungeon delving expansions, they kind of put what the story is on the box. They have left the mystery of Nuada completely like shadowy and stuff like that. So no one really knows what he's doing, why he's commanding the red caps, but you will have to find out by diving into the game and playing it. And I'm fairly sure a lot of people are going to buy this box set just for Nuada, because it's an absolutely gorgeous miniature. But as I say, Nuada is commanding the red caps, and there are a whole bunch of new monsters and minions for you to start fighting when you dive into your games of Warcrow Adventures. So one of the big burly creatures is the Crucible, as you can see here, being guided around by a very brave red cap, who's not going to end up in the lava, hopefully. But as you can see, there's a few more of their Fey-like creatures hanging around the back of the Monolith as well. This little catapult. I'll get you. Yeah. So yeah, you have the gorgeous new Crucible miniature. There's also the Stompers and the Flame Cobs. So these are your guys walking around on those really fun stilts as they go through the lava, which is absolutely adorable. That massive blade as well. So cool. And then you've got your Flame Cobs in the background that are, as you might imagine, blasting things with flames, which is always nice to see.
Get some.
Yeah. And then capping things off for the red caps. We also have the Gobblers and the Bug Bowls as well. So even more of those wonderful little catapults and things like that we can throw into the game. So if you were playing through the initial adventures of Warcrow Adventures and you wanted to try something a little bit different, Death Claws of the Dream throws in a whole bevy of additional Fey-like creatures for you to use in your games. And sort of tell a brand new story as well and find out what's going on as you step beyond the bounds of Hawthorne Point now that the fog has been lifted, such like that. Talking of the fog, there is also a new set of enemies that you can add into your games as well. So the Yaldabaoth, who are the kind of undeady, demony type mix of things, corrupted creatures and everything else in between, are going to be stalking their way out onto the tabletop. So if you want to mix things up in previous quests or adventures that you're playing, you can throw these into the mix and start using them. This set comes with the Needles, the Marked, the Orc Husks, the sort of like your undead shamblers, and also the Harvesters as well. And if you're really into your evil side of things, this is definitely one of the packs you want to snap up and add into your adventures. Very cool indeed. And if you like the Yaldabaoth even more, You can also get a set of cards that will allow you to start playing them in Warcrow the Wargame as well. So you can get your hands on the miniatures for the board game and then immediately start transferring them over into your games on the skirmish side of things as well, if you're playing the larger Wargame. And I would imagine we'll possibly see something like that happening for the likes of the Red Caps, Nuada, and all the other characters as well, because it's all from the same world. Could all be interchangeable. It's nice to see them do something like that. But yeah, very nice.
Everybody loves the taint.
God, you certainly love the taint. I'm just going to cast another spell. Are you sure, Jerry? Yes.
Every spell is a buff. See how people fear me now, even my friends. That's a buff.
Interestingly, sticking with Warcrow, but moving on to the Wargame side of things, there are also some more reinforcements coming out for the two main factions of the moment for Warcrow. So you'll be able to get your hands on the Black Legion Arquebusiers, as you can see there, or Arquebusiers. Can't remember how you say it. Something like that, probably. Who knows?
Arquebusier. You cover the first half of the word, you squint and only pronounce the vowels. That's how you work with French.
So these are for the hegemony of Embasig. And as you can see there, come with those absolutely fantastic looking multi-barreled rifles for shooting your enemies. Yes. Really good for holding the flanks. They also have a special rule where if they're charged, they can unload their rifles. So even though you might think you'll be able to get up in their face and take them down, as you're charging into them, you'll bounce off that shield and then get shot in the face by all the bullets coming out the end of those rifles, which is pretty cool. So very nice indeed. Love the armor style and everything for the hegemony Embassy. Even though I don't like them as a faction, I love the armor style. I think it's very nice. Kind of like Renaissance, medieval vibes. Yeah. Always good to see. Very good. On the other side of things, for the best faction, obviously, we have the Ice Archers coming out for the Northern Tribes. Again, just beautiful miniatures. I mean, when I saw these, the facial details on these are just phenomenal. Yeah. I think they've managed to capture such amazing character in these guys, and a really nice little addition to your Northern Tribes army as well, because they have the benefit of bows. They don't have to fire. They don't have to fire in a straight line, so they can fire over you. So you can actually have these guys. Fire. Yes, arc of fire. So you can have them in the back, firing over your front line at the enemies. So you can start to pick away at them before they get into close combat with you as well. So a really nice little set of miniatures on that front. There was also an additional character miniatures come out as kind of like a pre-order exclusive for February. So keep an eye out for this one to see sort of like how he fits into the overall scheme of things. Found a lot of these pictures through different sites like Warston and stuff like that. So this is definitely coming, but I'm not entirely sure how it blends into the overall release from Corvus Belli. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, you know the Hetman that comes in the core set.
Oh, it'll be
a named character.
Ah, there we go.
And he has, he's missing an eye.
Oh, so this is,
and he's got worse ranged shooting because his depth perception's screwed.
There we
go.
So
this is a standard Hetman.
Very nice. I like that.
I think his card already exists in the core set.
There we go.
You can play him as the regular or as the one out. Yeah. So if you want to play him without the damage to his eyeball and just want to play him as a regular Hetman, I think this is where they're going with that, because they did say at the time that it would be a model at some point down the line.
But yeah, he's very good for leading your units, keeps them refreshed and healthy, also gives them bonuses to attack with any unit that he joins as well. And as Jerry's pointing out, will be equally good with both sword and pistol at this point. There we go. And a lovely new miniature as well on that front. It's really nice to see that the Yaldabaoth are getting added into Warcrow as well, so you kind of got that sort of third faction sort of brewing in there. But there are also 3 more boxes of stuff coming out, I think, because there's the Yaldabaoth actual box set for Warcrow, the war game, alongside the elves and one of the other factions. I can't remember which one it is.
Is it not the full-on dwarven faction?
Maybe it's the full dwarf one, yes. Yeah. So they are definitely coming out in the near future, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, very good stuff.
Cracking.
And all for a combined world.
Yeah. I mean, when the Warcrow Adventures Kickstarter was running, the red caps were the ones that made me go, ooh. I just couldn't justify it at the time.
But now you
justify it now.
Nuada's calling, Jerry.
Yeah. Everybody loves old Silver Arm, even if his arm in this case is red. Must not focus on Hellboy all the time. But yeah, cracking stuff. Right. I think that wraps us up for the news. We shall return in just a moment in the studio. for some 3D printing. Over to me. Thank you very much, me. Here I am again, but this time with the real person up close and personal. So we have some upcoming prints from Westphalia's Red Brigade Kickstarter that we thought we'd take a look at, because we managed to get a sneak peek at the prototypes or the early versions of them.
Yep.
There may be some tweaking to go between now and final release after the campaign.
I have a feeling as well it's mostly going to be with the pre-supported, because we sent these files off to Warren to print them out, and he was saying that some of the pre-supports weren't the best at this stage, so if there's any tweaking to be done, it's probably going to be with that.
So, a bit unusual for us. We've actually printed something rather than just looking at a My Mini Factory page for once.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
I know.
How weird is it that I'm here being the one telling you about this as well? Madness. Absolute madness.
You're not a ones and zeros fan, are you?
I get very baffled by computers and technology in and of itself. I like people doing it for me, which is nice. So we have an eclectic mix here. Now, they have all been printed with the same resin.
That is the Elegoo water wash resin in grey.
Which is handy. But you may see as we pop a few of the minis under the camera that there's slight differences, you were saying?
Yeah. So
they're slightly matte compared to others?
There's two machines have been used. The Elegoo Saturn 3 Ultra and the Elegoo Saturn 4. And I believe the Saturn 3 Ultra has a ACF film in the bottom of the tank, and the 4 maybe doesn't have that, because there is differences in the actual surface detail of the models. So all these things you don't know about.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people about the Red Brigade?
It all sounds very exciting. I'm very excited. So the Red Brigade, as I say, this is a selection. It's not all by any means, but they are a sub-faction for New Antioch. The idea behind them is Ernest's brother at the Second Battle of Acre, or Acre, if you're Warren.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which is. I've always said Acre, so I'm stick with Acre. Got killed up like a clipper, done by the Heresiarchs, their faction. Anyway, Ernest picked up his brother's Sally helm, covered in his blood, stuck on his head, got waded in, and when the battle was over, he was the only one left standing. And the Red Brigade were formed in memory of him and his beatification, because he was made a saint, Saint Ernest of the Red Brigade, and that's why they colour their armour such. So it takes the New Antioch faction and then tweaks them a little, insofar as there are certain things that have been added, like trench dogs, which gives them the option for various types of hounds. They're not just even one hound, they've got options in there as like a cheaper soldier option or something you can sort of chaff away. However, they have a special rule called Hounds of Glory, or Glory Hounds for short. And if they do something worth glory in the game, they get double the amount, because everybody in New Antioch loves a good story, especially a shaggy dog story. Apparently. You can see one of the leaping fellas here.
Yeah.
We've actually got a couple. That one shows you how it sort of comes out when you've got it supported.
Yeah. So this one isn't too bad looking. I think that's been done on the Saturn 4. I have a feeling. I'm not sure how Warren is set up his printers. I think he may have told us some of that setup, but he didn't tell us everything. But that's one of the doggos.
There are others, my favourite being on his base.
Right.
There is a
little sausage dog.
Little sausage dog.
With stick grenades.
Covered in stick grenades.
One in its mouth and one either side on a little harness.
Yep. I mean, nothing screams vicious attack dog like a sausage dog that is playing a game of fetch with you around the park, in this case with a very explosive stick.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So they have access to things like the dogs. They are also limited in some of the other options that they can have within the faction, or within their sub-faction as well. So there's a few new bits and pieces coming in, and some other pieces that are either going to be limited or dropped out. The thing about the Red Brigade is it's being worked on by Thomas Piernan, so the rules are official.
Yes,
this isn't just we're doing something for Trench Crusade because everybody loves Trench Crusade. It's we're doing something for Trench Crusade because everybody loves it, and the guys behind Trench Crusade are working on it. So Thomas has been doing the rules, and there was a version up in the Trench Crusade Facebook group for a little while. I think it's currently down, possibly because of the final run before the campaign launches. So there was like an early, for the people involved, here's a test set of rules. What do you think? Is there anything broken? Is there anything needing typed up or fixed? You can see some, they're popping up here and there. There's a wiki that mentions them, and some of the bits and pieces.
Yep.
But you'll see it all in full detail soon. And then there's also a background being written as well. I can't remember the gentleman's name who's doing the background. I will find out and we'll put it in the doobly-doo below. Or I'll tell you when we go back to me in the studio after this. Or back to me in my house after the studio. When we go back to the regular weekender, I'll tell you his name. So they are getting a whole slew of rules and backstory to go with as well. I see you've grabbed the promo.
Yes, because the promo model is very pretty. Him and a dog were the free models that you could just download and get stuck in with straight away. So yeah, nice detail. I love the Lewis gun over the shoulder, sort of very casual kind of look to him.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff going on there.
Yeah, there's a very much distinctive look. You can see the expansion in armor, I suppose. So you've got your standard World War I Germans. Some of them have got trench armor, that segmented look, and then the occasional sort of gas mask peeking out there, and then other bits of armor has been added on. But you do go up to demi and full plate, and within that, then there's certain models that have the same sort of initial pose or dolly. I suppose if it was traditionally sculpted, you do one master dolly in a position and then add different details to it. And you can see there's one with a full face Sally and another one who's rocking a mighty tash and slightly different weaponry as well. And these, I think, are absolutely gorgeous.
They are, yeah. And from what little I've read of the actual, of the Trench Crusade sort of like demo rules, because these guys have a lot of armor on them, it makes them a bit more expensive than your standard sort of Trench Crusade, because you can make, for example, there's some yeomen in here, and yeomen can have absolutely no armor whatsoever, or they can basically have full plate, but it costs you a lot more to do that. So I imagine Red Brigade are going to be very much more elite in so much as the amount of equipment they have on.
Yeah, I think that's the other reason that they've included the dogs as a cheaper soldier type, to compensate for the fact that if you go super elite, then you'll just get overwhelmed by numbers.
Yep.
Whereas this way, you can balance out your hard hitters with some cheaper troops in there. There's also some upgrades. So I believe that's the Red Brigade's banner, which can be sort of bought in as a unit upgrade for them, as a bit of holy iconography that they can march in front of. I don't know if that's Ernest Brothers' head on the top of the standard as a relic styly. Who knows?
I wouldn't put it past them.
I'd do it like that personally.
Yeah.
Because, nothing says Crusade like a massive bunch of relics being toted in front of the army.
Yeah.
It really leans into the...
They've made this banner very thin. Like, you can see light through it.
Yeah, it's good.
Which is concerning.
Once it's been primed up, it'll be grand though.
Oh yeah, this won't do anything when you drop it.
Yeah. I'm sure there's probably some sort of solider ways of doing things.
Probably.
So yes, you've got the likes of those. A couple of the sort of regular, I suppose. Sort
of regular guys with a shielded, what looks like a sterling to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or a Sten. No, it's not a Sten because of that barrel, but it looks more like a sterling to me.
It's quite nice. There's lots of little iconographical details, which is a word I've just made up. So you will see things like, obviously, rosaries and crosses and that sort of thing hanging off them, but also within their armor or on the front of those little sort of shields, gun shields that they have. religious iconography there as well.
Yep.
That one I really like because he seems to have taken a serious amount of damage down the left side of his, or is it the other fella?
So I think it might be the other fella.
Guy. No, it's one of the ones with the trenchy armor. I don't have to do this because I'm old and I can't see.
Yep. You figured out which one?
No. Maybe I'm going mad.
Maybe you are.
Because when I see one with a lot of pockmarked armor down one side.
Oh, well, that one has pockmarked on that side.
Yeah,
so yeah,
as if he's taken a brunt of something at some point.
Yeah, a shotgun or something's had to go.
Yeah, you're going to need more than that to get past it. There are
character
models. Yeah,
the Sniper Prioress, I believe this is called.
Yeah, I think the Red Brigade are limited to a single sniper, or maybe two max. They really are much more melee focused and aggressive, so short ranged SMGs, pistols.
Yep.
Get up close, and
whereas your standard New Antioch have the sniper priests and have a lot more ranged and sort of machine gunny kind of stuff, sort of a bit more range. Still a fair bit of melee though.
Yeah.
But it's all in their options basically.
Yeah. My favorite of all things, and I don't know who this is, mostly because I can't get the current work in progress rules, but he's the biggest. He's not the only big brute they have. They have
a mechanized infantryman,
yes,
which is huge.
It's like an ogre-sized full plate carrying a massive machine gun. But this guy, he has all sorts of creep going on there, and this is one of the reasons I really like the Trench Crusade aesthetic. It has that fantastical element, kind of medieval myth kind of thing going on. Yeah, and the sort of the almost Hieronymus Bosch-like paintings, obviously they're the medieval, but that weird and surreal feel. But at the same time, still rocking a gas mask. Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to, really. Well, I wouldn't want to be going out in the wild without it. No. So it's, like I say, a little soupçon of what is available. If you are interested in this, obviously the campaign's not live yet. You can still get the promo. The promo mini with his dog. Yeah. And I believe if you sign up in advance of the actual Red Brigade Kickstarter launching, there's a little cross objective marker, a little Sally helmet at the bottom of it that you can download as well, or you'll get as part of the campaign. So if you are interested in taking a look at these, it's definitely worthwhile. And if you're interested in Trench Crusade, if you've not already joined the Facebook group, you should, because a lot of this stuff has already been talked about there extensively. Although you will need to wait now for the rules to come out. But, yeah, true. But yeah, overall, I'm very impressed with the detailing on these models. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much of it will come across in the camera, because there were things where obviously there's a slight reflection. Yeah. Whereas when I was looking at some of the details up close, there's some really fine, intricate work on them, especially, like I say, in that detailing on the armor, which just really comes across nicely. And I'm not doing medieval. I'm not doing World War One, but I could be tempted. You could be tempted to do both all at once? Both all at once, yeah. So there you go. What do you think of them yourself, John? I know you were keen from the minute you saw Mr. Lewis. I was very keen on these because I knew immediately when I was looking at Trench Crusade I was going to do New Antioch anyway, which means I bought a load of plastic minis, but Red Brigade was then announced and I was like, oh, actually these might be my way in instead, because I don't have to think about kit bashing so much. However, I can always add to them with kit bashing. I can make a load of lesser armored yeomanry and stuff like that to run around after them. We'll see. Yeah. I really do like these. I'm definitely going to try and get one under camera with some paint at some point and see how we get on with that. Cool. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Fantastic stuff. Hope that's given you a little bit of an idea of what it is when we're actually unleashed with a 3D printer. We managed to get some things printed. Some people lose arms and legs. C'est la vie. People keep telling me how ridiculously cheap it is. It doesn't matter if you fail and throw them in the bin. But there we go. All right, back over to me. All right, thanks, me. And John. That was good. So, Trench Crusade then, yeah. For those playing along at home, because we did talk about the website and the like there, you can go to Westphalia if you want to get your hands on these things in advance. Slightly wrong. I thought you had to sign up to get or be notified on launch of the Kickstarter campaign to get the little token, the objective marker, but it's not. It's actually just a little Christmas bonus. So you can grab the STL for that. And there is Man Mit Dog as well. Couldn't find the name of the guy who's writing bits and pieces of the background for it, but sure we'll find out soon enough. All the painting on the Red Brigade has been done by Seb Levine. Talented
stunning man.
And another trench dog, accompanied by all of these stick grenades, all the potato mashers. Still not my favorite. My favorite by far and away has got to be the little sausage dog.
The sausage dog, yeah.
There, it's just so cute. Just send a pack of those herring at people. That'll teach them. Goes live next week. So if you are interested, you can get in there. You can see what they're doing. So rules, minis, and scenario is all coming for us.
Zine and everything as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Red Shadows. But as you've seen from the models we had, they are absolutely cracking. And if you fancy touch the old trench crusadings, look at that. That is a wicked looking dagger. There's 2 different versions of that model as well.
Ooh.
So you don't have to repeat, which is always good in a small gang-based skirmish game, that you're not having a lot of repetition of figures. And the big daddy going absolutely ham. Somebody's going to get lamped with that bell. So yeah, you can, if you so desire, pop over, get notified at the Kickstarter, or just go to Westphalia and see what's happening there. And obviously the rules will be appearing with the other Trench Crusade rules over on their website as well, if you're not part of the face page group like we were mentioning. So there you go.
Very nice.
Look at us being productive and Johnny on the spot and stuff. In advance, not playing catch up for once in our lives. Well done, me. Well done, John. Well done, everyone. Right. We have a couple of crowdfunders to round out the show.
Yes.
Where are we going to start with those, Ben?
So we're going to be starting things off with another new campaign from the folks at Monolith Game Edition. Now, you will have noticed over the last little while, they've been doing a few more sort of campaigns. One of their big role-playing game campaigns was for Conan, which they did through Kickstarter, which is exceptionally good. Really awesome set of rules. One of their other board games that they did was the Batman board game, and so they've taken that and they've developed that into an RPG as well, and that's what they're funding right now over on GameFound. Wow. So this is Batman Gotham City Chronicles, the RPG. They have a couple of different options for you when you dive into this. You can either go with what's called the Skyline box, which essentially gives you all of the books. So that's a core book, an adventure book, a guide to Gotham, Games Master Screen, and like a slipcase to put it all in. Or you can go really all in and you can get the Sidekick box separately or in addition to the Skyline box and get all the miniatures that they've ever made for the board game that you can also then use in the role-playing game if you see fit, which is quite nice.
Did they have, I might answer the question as we scroll down, was it the game that had the, like, not bums, but civilians in it? Because I remember doing an unboxing and I think it was Batman with Sam and we were playing hipster or homeless with some of the bearded wool hat wearing people in that box.
Possibly, I think. Yes, because the board game has been around for a while, actually. Yeah. So that might be the case. They definitely have a lot of different miniatures.
There was a ton of miniatures
for this one.
Quarter-owls.
What's really interesting about this is that Monolith could very easily have just gone down the route of using the same core mechanics and systems for all of the role-playing games that they're working on at the moment. Just reskin
everything for
just reskin the Conan one, for example. But what they've done with the Batman one is different to the way that they set up the Conan one. So the Conan one has been designed to really push the Conan aesthetic, the Conan feel, that the sort of like big brutish battles where you slay loads of enemies and all that kind of thing. The Batman one is slightly more refined and sort of like in-depth. And so they've gone with, instead of it just being a D6 style system, they've gone for a D20 system with this one.
Yeah.
And there's a really interesting sort of balance to kind of bring it in line with the way that the Batman universe works. So when you dive into playing a campaign, you choose which level of kind of hero you want to be. So you have sort of, they call them street shadows and wonders. So obviously your wonders are your slightly more wild and wacky characters like Clayface and Poison Ivy who have supernatural abilities. You have your shadows who are your vigilantes. So your Nightwings, your Batmans, your Batgirls, all that kind of thing. And then you have your streets, which are your detectives and all that kind of stuff. And so whenever you choose to make a character, you choose which one of those levels you want to go in at, and that gives you certain specialities, but also certain things that you have to deal with as characters.
No Batman. Sorry, I'm just baffled.
Yeah, who doesn't know the Caped Crusader? But that then means that you have a really interesting dynamic when you play your role-playing games as well, because no one is necessarily on the same footing. You may have someone who is playing a Shadows character where the majority of the time when they interact with the street level characters, it'll be as their alter ego. But then when it comes to them showing up later on down the line as Batman or Batgirl, for example, that kind of twists things on its head. So there's some really interesting ways that they develop that. The actual test system is very simple and quick and easy to do, which I think is really good. I think it really benefits the kind of like action-packed nature of things. They've got a really nice mechanic in here where the damage dice are exploding. So whenever you roll the highest level of the dice, so the 10s on a D10, for example, you get to roll that dice again.
So Batman can flip out like a ninja.
Exactly. Because even though the melee dice have lower damage, there's more likelihood for them to roll the 6s, the 8s, whatever, or the D4s, or the 4s and the D4, to then have that damage ramp up. So it really shows the focus of like full-on proper melee hand-to-hand combat really doing something in a game, which I think is really fascinating and something that I'd like to see in sort of other role-playing games. You also have a really nice system based on your like your belief system almost. You're like Creed, like Batman doesn't kill and all that kind of thing. And that factors into mechanically using it to give you a benefit in certain circumstances. So maybe you want to use Batman's vengeance that he wants to eke out on criminals in order to really lay the smackdown on a particular character. So he gives you a massive boost to your attacks. But then equally, that can then be used by the GM as a negative for you. So if you're in a position where Batman would need to kill somebody in order to save a civilian, maybe that gives them sort of like minuses to their attacks and things like that in order to sort of deal with a certain situation. I think is really fascinating. They've also got a really cool sort of heroic element to the way that damage is done. So when you get taken out, you go down with what's called a serious injury, but you roll a test to see if you can like stagger to your feet and keep fighting. So you can keep going even if you're absolutely battered and your health has gone down to 0, but then obviously you'll have to kind of like regen over time. And
make me want to reread Nightfall.
Well, yeah, very good.
Because it started with Batman. Somebody broke. Yes. Well, I know who broke. Everybody knows.
Everyone knows who broke his back.
Bane broke everybody out of Arkham. So for weeks / months before Bane and Batman actually engaged, Batman, who was very sick at the time, was just getting his ass kicked by low-level thugs who would normally not even break a sweat over. But he had to keep fighting to try and keep the streets clean.
Which I think is, and I think they've really kind of nailed that on with this. Yeah. The quick start we're looking through here gives you a really nice overview of pretty much all of those styles of mechanics that we've talked about here. So it gives you a bunch of different characters for you to choose from that are kind of well known. So you get things like Alfred Pennyworth. You have Nightwing, which is really cool as well. You have Batwoman. And you have Bullock and Montoya as well, which I think is really nice. So you can obviously dive in and play some really interesting campaigns with these.
Yes.
And obviously, some of these characters know who Batman is, some of them don't. So you've got that really interesting dynamic there for role players to get stuck into. But it's a full-on, really nice little adventure for you to get stuck into as well, and kind of do the investigative side of things.
That'll ruin things for people.
Exactly, yeah. But really nice one there for you to dive into and have a look at. As I said, you can obviously then try out the quick start and then come back to the campaign and give it a little bit more of a closer look. The core book contains all of the stuff you need to get started in the game. The adventures book has been designed so that you can dive in and start playing out a whole bunch of pre-written adventures for the game. And so that'll be really nice for people who are new to games mastering, for example. The Gotham guide, I think, is a really nice addition to kind of like really bulk out the background of Gotham and sort of take it in different ways. And obviously, one of the things about this is that you could easily dive in and start playing this as a hero style adventure where you play as Batman or some of his allies. But I've equally seen people playing this all from the villain's point of view. So you have the full cabal of Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, and that kind of thing. And it could just be about you ruining Gotham and causing all sorts of mischief and having fun. Because obviously, in addition to that, there's obviously the light side and the good side in Batman, but there's also plenty of shades of grey in between for a lot of the different characters. And I think that could be a really interesting role-playing space to get into. And as you can see, Jerry's scrolling through the mountain of miniatures that they did for the Batman board game that are now equally available. So, Oracle as well. Yeah. So, some really nice stuff there. And obviously all the little sort of game maps that have been designed to they're washable effectively, so you can write on them and then scribble and then
use your overhead projector pens.
Exactly. You can use those. All the ones you stole from school 20 years ago.
The thing that fascinates me is probably playing as, at least beginning, as cops.
Yeah. I think it'd be really cool.
Playing low level, maybe occasionally they'll come across the path of somebody bigger, or maybe, Batman will swoop in and help them out, or Nightwing, or that's where the bigger names are NPCs to begin with, and they're just dealing with thugs, the mob, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where, yes, Gotham's a weird place, but it's a good way of grounding it until your players who might not know a huge amount, depending on where you're coming from. You may be coming from a purely comic book version, or you might be coming from the cartoon,
the animated series,
or the films, or whatever.
The movies, the Nolan movies, or the new one.
Yeah, the 1960s. Some days you can't get rid of a bomb, but because because you're not having to worry about dealing with the supernatural weirdness elements of things, they could hear about it, but above their pay grade. A detective's been sent over because Clayface slammed somebody through a wall, whatever, blah blah blah. I'm glad I'm not dealing with that. But you can do the grounded version. I will be getting this because
I ain't getting involved in that. I'm super corrupt.
It's not that. Comic book versions were good.
But it looks really good. As I said, I've only had a quick look through the quick start rules and had a look at the mechanics, but I think that Monolith are really kind of cementing themselves as doing justice to the properties that they're going to be looking after. As I say, I've had a really fun time with Conan, played through a lot of that. I had a really good time with it. And I think you could equally have just as good a time with Batman if you wanted to try and go down that route. Obviously, for those people who don't want to do DC style Batman adventures, there's also the Marvel role-playing game that's out and is exceptionally good with the D666 system. Very good.
Yeah, it's all right. It's no Batman.
No, it's no Batman. Well, yeah. Batman's
don't
cool.
play in.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm 100%. I still have a huge comic collection of Batman things when I used to be a big comic collector back in the day, and Batman was always right up there. Detective Comics and Batman, off you pop.
Interesting little tidbit for you as well. The BBC back in the 90s did a section of audio plays based on comic books. The one that I listened to was the Spider-Man one, and it was absolutely fantastic. It had theme music done by Brian May, of all people.
Right.
And it is really, really good, worth watching. It's on YouTube. I'll actually put a link down below to it, but I'm going to make a note for that myself as well. But in addition, the people who produced that also did a Batman audio drama, and it is lauded as possibly one of the best adaptations of Batman in
Makes
radio.
sense.
So it's definitely worth going to check it out. Again, I'll put the link down below to that as well. So you have both of those to listen to. So once you finish watching The Weekender, which will be very soon, you can go and listen to those while you're doing some painting.
Yes.
So,
excellent. All right. What's our last one for this week?
So the last one we're going to be looking at isn't actually live at the moment, but will be coming up very soon. But it was announced by the folks at OnePageRules this week. OnePageRules, a lot of people will know them for doing their quick and easy war games based around Grimdark Future and the Age of Fantasy. So they've done a whole bunch of those, as well as skirmish games and everything else in between. They're actually going to be bringing to GameFound a new 2-player battle box, which is going to be the first time that you're going to be able to get your hands on essentially just a full set of stuff physically for starting to play OnePageRules and Grimdark Future. This is a 2-player set that was called Broken Truth. It will contain 2 full armies. So you'll have the 37 Saurian Star Host miniatures alongside 49 of the Robot Legion. So your kind of sci-fi Seraphon or your sci-fi Lizardmen going up against your not quite Necrons. But with their own unique twist to them, as tends to be the case with everything that OnePageRules do. But in addition to that, you're also going to get all the rules, the tokens, the terrain, and everything else you need to play.
Right.
They've been working with a bunch of producers to create all of this and bring together this box set. So it's all going to be a set of full hard PVC plastic miniatures that will be fully assembled. So you simply need to break them out of the box and just start painting. Only some of the larger miniatures will need assembly, according to the folks at OnePageRules. But essentially, it's going to be their kind of one-stop shop for you to just start diving in and playing Grimdark Future. All going to be 32mm. They showed off a few of the examples. Obviously, there's painted examples here. There's also one of the PVC plastic miniatures further down the page as well, where they kind of like showcased how that's going to look as well. There'll be more details as the project goes live in the near future, obviously. So if you want to find out more about that, keep an eye on it. But I thought it would be just worth highlighting this as a potential sort of upcoming campaign that might be worth putting on your radar, because I think OnePageRules do some phenomenal stuff. And I mean, look at the quality of that. Yeah, it's bloody lovely, that. It'll be really fun to see where they go with this and kind of if it catches on, because obviously if the Grimdark Future set works well, they could potentially do something for Age of Fantasy as well in the future, which would be really nice. So keep an eye out for that one. And we'll come back to it in the future, I'm sure.
Good potential in there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
They're really solid rule systems. I'm just thinking back when he says it's, one man's idea, 10 years in the making, when first contacted us. And it was the very first STLs they were doing. So they'd had the rules for a while, and they'd had 2D things.
Yes.
2D
Little
ships,
flaps.
2D flats, standees. And it was like, and now we're going to start doing STLs. You go, ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, how
They've
that
come a
feels
long
like
way.
so long ago.
Yeah.
Going, we're actually going to produce a 2-player starter set, and off you pop.
Exactly. As I say, that'll be coming up soon. No prices revealed as of yet as to what that's going to be.
£12.
£12. Well, that would be
£12.
wonderful. Let's back it for £12. Wishful thinking, I think, Jerry. Wishful thinking. But keep an eye out for that one. But definitely go and check out that Batman RPG. Oh,
Sweet.
looks good.
Sweet like candy. I will be checking out that Batman RPG.
Spend money, Jerry.
Nothing else to spend on.
As I said to John this week, retail therapy is a type of therapy. So.
Always.
Yep.
Right. That wraps us up for another week. We shall return to it on Sunday for our XLBS over at OnTableTop.com with our Cult of Games members. If you're not already a cultist, join us, where we witter on about hobby on a Sunday morning to get over your Saturday night hangover. And we'll be back again next Friday for more of the same. So we'll see you then. Have a great week of gaming. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.